Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. The central government for a while now has been making a big push for privatization. And in its first major step in that direction, it finally sold off Air India, the airline that had been struggling for years and had not made a profit since 2007. The government had in fact pumped in around 1.1 lakh crore rupees in it since 2009 to prop it up. The airline, in a landmark deal, was finally sold to Tata Sons, the company that had founded the airline in 1932. It was called Tata Airlines back then. But after it was sold to the government, the name became Air India. The Tata Sons will now regain control of the airline and will have 100% stake in the company. After the deal was complete, Ratan Tata, who is the chairman emeritus of Tata Sons, had tweeted, "Welcome back, Air India." Now, in the past, the government had tried to sell the airline. It had done that twice, once in 2001 and the other in 2018. Both these attempts were unsuccessful. So what made the attempt successful this time? What does this deal mean for Tata? And what does it mean for the government itself? In this episode, we will be answering these three questions and more. And for this, we are first joined by Pranav Mukul, who reports on aviation for the Indian Express. So, Pranav, before we talk about the landmark sale, could you first talk about the ways in which Air India had been struggling for the past few years?
So, Air India, for more than the last 1 decade, has been a loss-making airline, and it's never been that efficient. And on top of that, there was this huge debt that it carried because of all the aircraft acquisitions that it had made. So all of that in an increasingly competitive private sector environment. And in addition to that, there was also a culture of being a government company that didn't really help the airline achieve its full potential. So to that extent, it's like accumulated thousands of crores of losses. Its debt itself is around more than 60,000 crores, and it's not earning enough to be able to repay that debt. And to that extent, the government just kept on supporting the airline through equity infusion year after year after year. And since 2009-10, the government has pumped in more than rupees 110,000 crore into the airline. And it's still a loss-making airline. So that's why this government thought that better to take your hands off this loss-making airline that's being basically funded by the taxpayer, and let a private company which can possibly run it more efficiently manage this business.
Also, you have written in one of your pieces that the government had essentially been subsidizing its losses. And it did that for quite some time. A lot of money went into it, but in the past, the government had tried to auction the airlines off. What is the reason the past two auctions did not work out?
So, the government since 2001 had its mindset on disinvesting this airline, and that 2001 was when the first attempt was made. And in fact, it had reached a point beyond what we are seeing now with the disinvestment. But on the last moment, it was cancelled because the winning bidders, which was a consortium of Tata Group and Singapore Airlines, saw Singapore Airlines just pulling out at the last minute. And there was a lot of lobbying that had happened against this group joining hands and, acquiring Air India. So that didn't happen then. At that time, the government was wanting to disinvest 40% of its stake. So that was the first attempt, but then this whole sort of process went into the silo for around the next more than 10-15 years until 2017, when the government brought it back to the table. And in 2018, it formally invited bids. But even then, the government was looking only to part with 76% of the stake in the airline. And that was something that wasn't looked at very keenly by the private sector. People suggesting that if the government really wants its hands off the airline, it should get rid of the entire stake in Air India and not keep some for itself, because then that also means that government has some say in the airline. And that just goes against the entire idea of the government trying to get rid of the airline.
Yeah, and I suppose a company that has a government stake in it would have certain restrictions as opposed to a private company.
It's not just about the restrictions, but someone acquiring 76% of the stake might, want a complete say in what it wants to do with the airline, how it wants to manage it, how it wants to operate it. And to that extent, having even a minority stakeholder with such a big share, that was 26%, that could have potentially caused problems in the future. So that's the reason why the process did not receive even a single bid in 2018. And then 2019, we saw the general elections again, and 2020 January, the government brought it back to the table once more.
Okay, so this time Tata was the highest bidder, but who else was in the running for it?
So if we talk about the financial bids, there were only two entities that made financial bids. One was, of course, the Tata Group, and second one was a consortium led by SpiceJet promoter Ajay Singh, who had bid in his own capacity, not through SpiceJet, but in his private capacity along with certain other consortium members. So the Tata Group's winning bid was at rupees 18,000 crore, whereas Mr. Ajay Singh's bid was just above rupees 15,000 crore.
And we know, of course, that the highest bidder would get the deal, but how much of a role did Tata's legacy, the fact that it was the original operator, play into the deal?
So, in any sort of strategic disinvestment that has even happened in the past, there's a certain set of rules and regulations that the government follows to ensure that. Of course, what we do know is that the Tatas have been interested in acquiring the airline back since 2001. So to that extent, of course, they were going to participate, but ultimately in any sale, in any sort of auction, sort of to say, always the highest bidder will get the fruits. And that's what happened. Tata's emerged as the highest bidders and they're set to own the airline now.
And earlier you talked about the challenges of the past two deals, including the fact that the deal included the government stake. But what were the challenges this time?
So this time around, it started the process in January 2020. And we know that just a few months later, COVID hit and entire country went into a lockdown. And the aviation industry, in fact, was one of the worst hit industries across the world. And to that extent, it was difficult finding an investor for the airline space where, airlines were bleeding so much. All airlines, even the most efficient airlines, were bleeding so much, let alone Air India. So it again went to a back burner till about October 2020 when the government completely brought out a new set of bidding parameters, making it more attractive for potential investors. It said that earlier we were going to bundle some of the airline's debt along with the airline itself, and that was sticky point for any potential investor as to, this debt has been taken on by the government to run the airline. It hasn't been able to, so why should we take on this debt? But then the government said, okay, finally, what you're going to bid, you bid at an enterprise value, which comprises both the debt and the equity value of the airline. So when I talked about the 18,000 crore that Tatas have bid, it also includes 15,300 crores of the airline's debt. And most of this debt actually is towards the repayment for the aircraft that Air India owns, that now Tatas will be operating as a part of the Air India fleet. So the government thought it was only fair that at least you should take that portion of the debt with you, against which the assets you're going to own. So it got rid of this one big hurdle. Debt was a key hurdle, in fact, in 2018 disinvestment bid as well. And especially, after COVID, this again proved to be a hurdle that the government got rid of in October 2020.
Okay, so now Tata is going to be in charge of the airline again, owning 100% of the stake in it. And the company already has taken two other airlines, Vistara and AirAsia. So what does this deal mean for Tata, apart from, of course, the emotional aspect of it, which is also being talked about?
So, for a company like the Tata Group, and especially under the current chairman N. Chandrasekaran, it has mostly been about whenever they've looked at any acquisitions or any inorganic growth across sectors, it has been about how much value they can derive from the assets that they're paying for. And it's obviously they have two airlines. One is a full service carrier, you mentioned Vistara, and the other one AirAsia India, which is a low cost service carrier. And there's Air India, which is again a full service carrier, and there's Air India Express, which they're going to get, which is again a low cost carrier. So to that extent, on paper at least, it's easier to say that they're going to be getting so many slots and so many landing rights and so many aircraft. What we understand also is that the Tata Group is going to take a very deep look at how they can derive value from what's there. Of course, one option is to scale down the airline to a more sustainable level to the revenues that it's earning. or the second option is to more efficiently scale up the operations to help the airline achieve its full potential at the size that it is because Air India does have some really prime slots in places like London and New York, where it's difficult for even the biggest airlines to get. Air India has it because of its legacy, because it's been operating there for decades. So that's obviously a big plus for Tata's, but we'll obviously have to wait and watch what the strategy will be for Tata's.
Also, what happens to the employees in this deal? Because their payrolls, considering it was a government job, was also being talked about a fair bit before the deal. So what happens to them?
So what the government has said so far is that it has tried to address the concerns that the employee unions had. And to that extent, one is that from the date of the closing of the transaction, the new owner will have to retain the employees for at least a year. And beyond that, if it wants to undertake any retrenchment exercise, it will have to offer a voluntary retirement scheme, or VRS as we know, to the employees. But obviously, one thing is changing the culture of the airline through its employees. But these are also trained employees, and this is a sector that needs trained labor, whether it is pilots or cabin crew or aircraft maintenance engineers. They're not easy to come by. And obviously, Tatas would not want to, just for the sake of overhauling the airline, would not want to completely get rid of all the employees. But there will be, I'm sure, certain performance linked changes within the airline at the lower rung as well as on the management side.
And it has around 12,000 employees, around 8,000 of which are permanent, right?
Yeah, that's just for Air India, including Air India Express. There's a total of 13,500 employees.
Also, Pranav, the other thing that you have written about is how the government pumping money into this loss-making airline did affect the competition in the airline industry, like it affected Jet Airways, for example. So now with Air India becoming private, how does it affect other Indian airlines?
So, there's two parts to this basically. One is that the airline was being subsidized for its losses by the taxpayer. And to that extent, and if we consider a private airline, which is a for profit airline, or any other company, the size of Air India, with the losses that it has made through the years, it's completely unsustainable, and any other company would have just folded up. And we've seen airlines folding up, we've seen airlines real close to folding up, but obviously you need money. It's a capital intensive business. So to that extent, when an airline continues to run at losses, it does distort the level playing field for all other airlines. So it's just like you have a wallet with unlimited money. I just can't compete against you. You'll be offering fares at the same price as I do. You won't be affected by that. So to that extent, it did distort the level playing field, and that indirectly led to financial problems in some of the other airlines as well. But the other part to this is that even through the years now, Air India, especially since the government made its mind up to disinvest its stake in the airline, there has not been a major upgrade in the airline's passenger experience side. So we have seen cabins not being upgraded to that extent. We've seen some maintenance contract, aircraft lease rentals that weren't competitively negotiated for by the Air India management. And when Tatas decide to invest in rebuilding the airline, and Mr. Ratan Tata said in his statement that it's not going to be an easy task to rebuild the airline, but when they decide to do it, obviously one of the key changes that they might bring in are upgrades to passenger experience. They might upgrade aircraft cabins, they might upgrade the frequent flyer program and so on, which brings it at par with other airlines in India as well as across the world. So to that extent, it will make these other competitors also pull their socks up, to not just in India, but we can even see this happening in the Middle East, for example, where Emirates and Etihad and Qatar Airways, they've been taking most of the traffic from India to US and Europe via their hubs in Dubai, Abu Dhabi or Doha. So to that extent, this airline could finally be more competitive in the right sense and could cause experience for customers to improve.
Also, Pranav, Tata buying the airline means that it is confident that it can turn it around and make a profit out of it. But what do you think is the reason that this couldn't happen, under the government?
So, what we've spoken to some people, including one former Air India director, Mr. Jitendra Bhargava, and he made a point that you look at Air India's top executive. The chairman was mostly a bureaucrat, and a new chairman came in every few years. So there was no long-term vision for the airline in the first place that a chief executive could fulfill that. And when you compare it to the private airlines, you see a CEO coming in and trying to put out his vision and having it executed over the years, because again, like I said, it's a capital intensive business. You can't make things overturn overnight in this industry. And also, because it is such a capital intensive business, it demands a certain cost just to stay afloat. There's a certain capacity beneath which, if it operates, it's going to be a loss making business. And also, how you operate it and what you use it for. Air India obviously has fulfilled a lot of social purposes. It has flown to places to evacuate Indian citizens. It's been there as a for-profit enterprise, but it's operated for purposes beyond just that. So there were a lot of factors that came together to make the airline sort of unprofitable. Of course, this was not the only reason why it was unprofitable. There's obviously a question on how the government ran it and what the government's vision was. But for a private company, obviously profit will be the number one priority, or at least among the top priorities to manage the airline. Because even for the government now, what we heard lately was that if this investment bid failed, the only option was to shut down the airline. Of course, that wouldn't have been an ideal situation for the government, because it would have led to a lot of job losses and a lot of other indirect loss of investments and all that. So to that extent, it's a good deal for the government having to sell to Tatas.
Now, so far in this episode, we have talked about how this deal came about, how it will affect Tata and the airline industry. But now we talk about how the deal will affect the government, the lessons it can learn from it, and the signal it sends to global investors. And for this, Udit Mishra, who writes on the economy for the Indian Express, joins us. Udit, firstly, what do you think is the significance of this deal, and what do you think it means for the government, considering it has been spending quite a bit of money on this airline?
Yes, so it's a sort of a landmark thing, not because the process per se is something so unique or different that it has not been done, but it's just that the recent history of India trying to sell Air India has been really troublesome, because there were many times when they didn't even get a single entrant, a single bidder for Air India. And it reflected very poorly that the national carrier was not even attracting a single bidder. And it reflected poorly also on all governments, not just this government or even the past, that they couldn't even frame the way to sell Air India. So yes, the fact that this issue has finally been clinched is of consequence because it took so much time. But beyond that, the fact is that if one goes and looks at the numbers, we find that, well, the airline was run very poorly, and that reflects poorly on the government's ability to run the airline. And this is not just this government's problem, but historically, since liberalization, that just record kept getting worse, and is more a relief than an achievement that the government has been able to sell off this airline. Because remember, the airline was losing 20 crores a day. And that's a huge amount that's coming straight out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Also, how do you think this deal is expected to help the government in other such deals in the future?
I think there will be crucial lessons learned. Otherwise, this deal would not have gone through. As we mentioned in our story, that two of the biggest problems were that until unless government stake was totally removed, private investors were not interested, and justifiably, especially for enterprises that are debt-ridden or loss-making. Private investor would want to have free hand. The other thing is the mountain of debt that Air India had. And government has also had to realize that you cannot ask all of a sudden a private player to come and handle all that debt and also pay you anything. So that will not happen. So there are crucial lessons here about how to get rid of assets which may still demand some kind of a market price, but more importantly, which can still be turned around and be turned into profitable enterprises and not get stuck into very onerous demands like you cannot fire anybody or you cannot change the name of the brand or this or that. So there are lessons here that you have to be serious about how you position your assets in the market. You cannot expect private players to come and simply take over the debt or take over the liabilities as if they were also part of the government.
And also, at a time when the government is pushing for privatization, what message does it send to global investors?
So we have to understand that India is one of the larger economies and growing, and barring these periods of lull where the economy slows down, there is very good reason to believe that an economy like India would continue to grow if it continues to reform. And that's a huge opportunity for global investors. If you think of yourself as a global investor, you'll find that the kind of growth that India or places like India or China project are inconceivable in any other market. So if you can have a democratic setup where the economy also keeps growing at a decent pace, that's a very attractive proposition for investors. Now, on top of that, if they realize that the government is willing to, what this government has said, that we don't want to be in the business of running a business. We want to be out of it, and we want to stick to a smaller agenda for the role of the government in the economy, then that just opens up the opportunity for private investors, for private entrepreneurs to profit from the system, to invest in that system and grow that way. So this sale essentially sends that kind of a salutary message that we are serious, and that in other areas also we will open up and come and do business here. There are possibilities.
You were listening to Three Things by The Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.